So, in the hope to have some thoughts for preaching today, I went yesterday to Fermata. And people from Ambridge know what it is. It's a bar. It's also the only place that is open late at night, so that's the only place I can go. But instead of doing my preparation, I ended up talking to people, which also very often happens in Fermata. And the guy whom God placed on my way yesterday is called Bo, B-O. Bo was abandoned in an orphanage by his parents when he was little. He changed 30 foster homes since then. He overdosed 9 times, and tried to kill himself several times. And I said, Bo, listen, I gotta preach tomorrow. Are you even Christian? He's not baptized. But he knows the Bible pretty well. And he was like, I'm a Jesus fan. You say Jesus, I'm there. And in fact, he helped me a lot. I asked him, what is the point of Holy Friday? What do you think? He knew the answer immediately. The guy who never received any care from the church at all, who's not even baptized again, he said, of course, we celebrate it because it's the only hope. That's the only hope we have. That's why I'm not dead yet, because of Jesus. Because if not Jesus, I would have died one of the times I overdosed. What a trust. But there's an element of Holy Friday that consists in that you cannot really preach the crucifixion. God himself has to preach it. And Bo, who's never received any catechesis, knows what the passion of Christ is about better than anyone who's read all the books about the crucifixion. The nature knows about the crucifixion of Christ, about his burial and resurrection, more than anyone who's read all the books about the passion. The cherry trees that started blooming already by today know more about the crucifixion than we do if we don't live it. And the church understood that you cannot really preach Holy Friday, which is why we have the Via Crucis, the way of the cross. And your lives preach the Holy Friday much better than I can do today. And my task today is only to remind you of who you are. Only to remind you that when you read the gospel, when we read the Passion today, when you see the crucifix, when we're going to venerate it today as well, it's not someone else you're venerating, or not only someone else. The face of Christ is your face. This is your crucifixion. And it's going to be your resurrection. The cross in itself doesn't really make much sense. It's just a torture instrument. It's just a symbol. And the Christ could have died in any other way. There are people who died in much more terrible deaths than Christ. But it's the relationships that form around the cross. That's the Passion way that we are living through. The first ones to leave when the Passion begins are the crowds. The crowds who accompanied Christ everywhere he went, who were attracted by different things, by bread, maybe, by miracles. And it's not that the bread is bad. In fact, it's super important to try to be spiritual with no bread. It's impossible. But when the interest in the relationship is only bread, or only the thing that someone gives me, it's not enough to sustain that relationship. So the crowds disappear first. And then there's the closer circle of people, like disciples for Jesus. And we all need the community that embraces us, the community that can walk with us. And yet the disciples are united to Jesus because they seek for an ideal. They think he is going to bring a new kind of peace, a new kind of life into Israel, that he's going to liberate Jerusalem from the Roman oppression. Maybe they had other values, other ideals. But when Christ, as he does, disappoints them, disappoints those ideals, disappoints those values, disappoints them, they disappear as well. They go in search for others who can uphold that value, that plan, that hope that they have, which is what Judas does, in fact. And then there are people who are really, really, really important. People who are very close friends, who actually do see a person behind the value that they represent, who do see a person behind just the mission that they are on together, or the tour that they are on to with the person, who try to, take the sword out, defend, try to make an extra step, walk an extra mile with you. For Jesus, these good friends, and we all need them, are Peter, James, and John. He takes them to the garden, and they follow him to the, bit more to the passion. But those people, even our best friends, even those who did follow us a little bit more into the judgment court, are still human. They have their limits. They have their lives. They have their families. And at some point, they get afraid, like Peter. They are on their journey with God as well. They are in their process of sanctification. And for sanctification, we really need those really deep relationships that affect us, because these are the relationships where we can fail, where we can betray. And sometimes going through a betrayal is needed to learn how to love. Sometimes going through a complete failure in the relationship, knowing who you are in that relationship is what is needed in that relationship, is the plan of God for you in that relationship. And we cannot blame them. We cannot blame Peter for who he is. It's only because he goes through betrayal that he can then become the rock. And then there is someone who is even closer than those best friends. There's a very, very high, a very, very rare level of relationship, of commitment. One of the things that the best friends of Jesus are afraid of, Peter, James, and John, one of the reasons that Peter betrays, one of the reasons they fall asleep in the garden, is because it's very hard to witness someone's pain, especially the one you love. It's very hard to witness someone's pain and know that you can do nothing. It's hard to be confronted with your own impotence. And people are afraid of their own impotence. But then there is a kind of love that is even stronger than the fear of impotence. The women that follow Christ along the passion and his beloved disciple who is young and reckless. There are these people who love you so much that they can watch you being wounded. They can watch you dragging your cross, falling into mud, rising again, and dragging this cross, and they walk with you and watch it, and they watch you being spit in the face, and they're still there, and they keep watching you, and they watch you die on the cross because they can do nothing, but they're still there. The way of the cross is full of this useless figures. And this useless in the sense that they cannot take him off the cross. They cannot even alleviate his pain. But this is the highest form of love, to be able to stay, to watch, to be there. Because that's what makes the pain of Christ human. But then at some point, when the cross is lifted high, there is a level of suffering where no human can go. Mary, Jesus' mother, Mary Magdalene, and the other Mary, they take it to the edge. But then there is a point where no human can enter. Not because they are weak, not because they don't love you, not because they're superficial, but because they just cannot. It's the Holy of Holies. Only God can be there. And the experience of pain, the experience of suffering, often is needed to disclose to us this Holy of Holies that exists in us. It's always there. There is always the secret chamber where only God can exist in us. Where only God can be with us, this intimacy of our interior life. But when we're suffering, when this solitude is so acute that you cannot notice it, that's when we really turn there. Like King David in the Psalms, the dogs of Bashan have encompassed me, and then he turns to God's provision. And there are several ways to die. Everything we've said till now about the relationships, all of that can be said by a good psychotherapist. There are beautiful religious traditions in the world that can recreate some sort of logic like that. But here's where Christ adds something new. You can die as a victim, and you can die as a hero. But Jesus Christ shows us the third way to die. He dies as a son. He dies as someone who falls into the hands of the Father. In fact, he's only able to choose the cross because he knows that there are these hands that he can fall into, that the love of the Father is with him. In fact, in the Gospel of John, whenever Christ performs a miracle or feeds people or says something smart, he always takes this as an occasion to bring people back to this truth. They're like, oh, Jesus, you healed that person because I'm a son of God. Oh, Jesus, that was really well said. I'm a son of God. That's what's important to him. That's the center of the cross, the Holy of Holies. Because he's the Son of God, he knows that the Father is there. He can lead us there because he came from there. And there is no other way but to follow the one who knows where to go. No one else knows. A lot pretend that they do. A lot pretend that they do. The world continuously tries to trick us into thinking that there is any other choice but Jesus Christ. The world inflicts fear on us, trying to trick us into thinking that there are choices that are really decisive in our lives. That our life will be completely different. We will miss a lot of things if we choose to be married instead of being single. Or choose to be single instead of being married. If we choose to do a carpenter over being a theologian. Or choose to be ordained instead of, not being ordained. Lots of choices. But all of these are really non-choices. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whether there is light or there is no light. It doesn't matter whether you are in the beautiful hall in the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome or in the Fermata bar in Ambridge. If there is no light, there is no light. You're not going to see anything. But if you are with Christ, if you have that passage to the Holy of Holies, if you receive that love from the Father, you don't need those other loves. You don't need to choose. Or you choose, you can choose better because you're not manipulated by fear. You're not manipulated by other loves that you're trying to receive because Jesus Christ himself is that opinion of the crowd, but of the rejoicing, celebrating crowd, except that he doesn't go away. His voice doesn't go away. Jesus Christ himself is the community, the disciples, the values that but the true ones that do not fail. And Jesus Christ himself is the best friend who is not afraid of his own impotence, so he stays. And he is the one who follows you to the cross and beyond. Of the Holy of Holies. And if we have that love, then we know that we can sacrifice. We have something to sacrifice out of. When we have that love, like Abraham, we can sacrifice what we love. Can sacrifice our time to be with the family. Can sacrifice our ego to go and say sorry. We can sacrifice our desires in order to fight that sin. But if there is no love, all of that is useless. No sacrifice is possible. Jesus Christ said, to be my disciples, take your cross and follow me. He didn't say, take your cross, crucify yourself on it, and bleed out. He said, follow me, because there is somewhere to go, because there is the hope beyond our cross, and he's the one who knows the way. We can go there through different paths, depending on multiple choices that we make in love, but there is only one way, only one destination. It's home. We're going home. Amen.